If you look at our manufacturing sector, there are strong linkages with the sectors like agriculture and mining. So if you look at the success that Zimbabwe has had over the last season with regards to agricultural performance and agricultural production, that will have a strong positive impact on the manufacturing sector. We have a thrust for value addition. If you take, for example, the success that we're having in the cotton industry in terms of increased cotton production, that will have a bearing on the textile industry in terms of revival of activities in that sector.
The Reserve Bank seems to be quite unhappy with the use of foreign currency, particularly in the manufacturing sector internally. What is the appetite for foreign currency for this sector?
I think as Zimbabwe, we've emphasized, both ourselves in Treasury, our central bank through the governor, we've emphasized that the currency regime remains the multi-currency arrangement. And in terms of the multi-currency arrangement, you have various currencies that are there, of which the rand is part of the currency basket. The US dollar is part of that currency basket. What we have done is to promote increased utilization of plastic money. And it's a global trend. And we are moving away from a cash-based economy to an economy that does most of its transactions through electronic transfers. So that's the route globally. We've also had a dimension where the increased utilization of cash, predominantly the US dollar note, which then ended up beyond our borders. I think that situation is not sustainable, where an increasing number of US dollar notes are being utilized essentially to bring in trinkets at the expense of supporting importation of raw materials that support domestic manufacturing industry.
There's a call from opposition parties saying that they want you to demonetize the bond note. Are you even considering that?
But you'll be surprised the extent to which the economy has embraced electronic transfer payments. We've got a variety of cash transfer platforms, even the example that you have given, where we've got such platforms as Ecocash. I think in East Africa and Kenya they call it the M-Pesa platform. We've got something similar here through what they call the Ecocash platform, and this is what the Econet system. Net One is also its system. So you'll actually be surprised that there is broader embracement even in the vegetable markets, where they're using those kind of transfer platforms.
The previous finance minister had projected that economic growth in Zimbabwe will be around 3.7%. But when you look at everything that is happening, do you think that the country is still poised for that kind of economic growth of 3.7%?
Our projection in terms of economic growth for 2017 remains 3.7. If you look at the projections that the likes of the International Monetary Fund had made, they were making projections of real economic growth of 2%. But 2 weeks ago, the IMF itself has actually reviewed Zimbabwe's growth projection for 2017 to 2.8%. So the trend is upward in terms of the projections for economic growth. But ourselves as Zimbabwe, we remain confident that we will realize the 3.7% positive economic growth.
Now, unemployment is a big problem for all of the countries in the SADC region. What is the Zimbabwean government doing to get Zimbabweans working once again?
all that is directly translating into employment opportunities for the ordinary Zimbabwean who is focusing on agricultural production. There are also other interventions that we've been making to try and embrace the smallholder business person. You yourself have just given the example where you said that the issues of the moratorium on the VAT on SMEs having a positive impact. So as government, we remain engaged with all stakeholders to translate the positive gains that we are getting in terms of production into an inclusive growth prospect.
One of the themes that we had at this conference was the issue of trade facilitation in Africa. How does Zimbabwe view this issue of intra-regional trade? The South African finance minister in his budget speech this week also mentioned the commitment by South Africa to regional inter-trade.
SADC can view itself as an island. So we are supportive of increased intra-SADC trade among the member states. Because what trade does, it also forces domestic producers, as they face external competition, to become more competitive. So we are all supportive for increased intra-SADC trade. But what we would want, the caution that I would make is the need to have an even playing field, so that you also give equal opportunities to traders across the various SADC countries. And you would be aware that SADC has got this thrust which, with regards to industrialization. It's an acknowledgement that you cannot sustain a situation where most of the Southern African countries, the thrust of their production and trade is on the raw materials and raw commodities. So the thrust for value addition and industrialization brings everybody to the table so that you enhance the opportunities of trade for all countries within the region.
All right, more reports coming out of Zimbabwe.